Why do you always make that face?
I don't know. It's more interesting than my regular face. I am covered in a big black fake fur blanket, and it's awesome.
I don't like the texture of it. I don't.
It's fantastic.
Like it. It's hairy and disgusting.
It's amazing.
It was expensive. How much was it?
It's like 35, 40 quid.
Okay, that's not.
But it's not real, and you get to choose your color of your thing. Gray or black or yellow or whatever. And I got a black one.
There's a neighborhood cat that comes about because he's figured out if he comes to the back kitchen door or window, we'll give him treats like an idiot. And then he has to come in the house and dander about and sniff and rub up on things. And he sniffed that suspiciously. And I was like, you're right to feel that way. So.
Yes, this is, before we talk about Fear Street Part 2, we're just going to give a little plug. Okay, now, for my sister runs goth and weird fiction and other kinds of related books, bookshop on the internet.
Mystery, dark history, and thriller.
Yes, at darkrosebooks.com, and she's currently got a sale on.
A sale? What? Are you crazy? You mean
yes.
We could be saving percentages?
You could be saving up to 50%.
On books such as, these are actually ones that we left.
I mean, earlier today, ordered a couple of books. I ordered Macabre Fiction by H.P. Lovecraft and Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology.
You mean H.P. Lovecraft, the racist? No, I mean, he is a racist. But
he was.
He's not allowed to know.
But these are a couple of ones that we'd got previously from her shop, and they're excellent. Like, this is a collection of Mary Shelley stuff. Excellent things. The first one that was up there, that was The King in Yellow, which was loosely adapted.
If you know your shit.
It was one of the ones that inspired Lovecraft and was loosely based into True Detective. This one
is actually about 100 pages into it. It's a debut novel from an author. It's really good. Reminded me a little bit of Gene Wolfe crossed with Edward Gorey. If Gorey had written instead of drawn.
Very gory.
No, the artist. Anyway.
This one? I haven't actually read this one yet, but it's about lost ghosts.
I don't know why I'm giving them their own exit stage.
And this is the complete short stories by Aleister Crowley.
Aleister Crowley? You mean the alternate religion individual that people are so...
Aleister Crowley, the guy who was so fat, mad, and bald that, he assumed he was a wizard.
I mean, I guess. Or either that or like Mr. Clean. Although Mr. Clean's not fat.
So, anyway... darkrosebooks.com, they're having a sale, and if you're into that sort of odd shit, then please check it out. I mean, excellent selection.
By Grapthard's Hammer. What a saving.
Yes.
I've always wanted to say that, not in context. So, what patron asked for this?
Patrons have names?
Listen, when I listen to podcasts, they know their patrons. But anyway, the patron, stop it. The patron who asked for all three Fear Street.
Yes.
We watched the second one.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to know that from the name of the video.
Yeah, but I'm telling everybody else. This is in case they were oh, why are you randomly reviewing the second film in a series?
Yes, all three
continuity. Yeah, so the first one was set in 94, and this one is set in 1978. Mm-hmm. And it had a good 70s aesthetic. It wasn't as strong and overwhelming as the 90s aesthetic, probably because there was only one set.
And one thing I had never noticed before, but the 1970s aesthetic, it really makes characters who are dickheads much more concentrated in their dickishness. It just makes everyone seem more of an asshole.
I thought it was standard asshole.
Trust me on this. It makes them seem worse than they are.
I guess.
Because everyone looks like a dickhead in 70s clothes.
That's true, yeah. So all of the children were dressed in the kind of clothes that's... Okay, well, in the late 80s, maybe 88 or 89, I inherited a whole bunch of young adult books from my older cousin. And the kids in this were dressed exactly like every child on the cover of all these young adult novels. We're God, it was a strange collection of stuff. There was one girl who her older sister dies of leukemia throughout the book, and just some really really morbid
uplifting
shit. Go Ask Alice, a whole bunch of
about that book. We don't know
a whole bunch of mid to late 70s books that I was probably too young to read at the time. And she's here, have these ones, and I was all right.
Now, unlike 94, Eric did not stop this to, go on huge pontifications about everything. In this one, he stopped it every so often to go on huge pontifications about very particular things, because this is set in an American summer camp, and so I had to get an impromptu lecture on the subject of American summer camps.
Exactly. But you didn't have the context for it. Because I said, I spent 5 years, like 5 summers, at Camp Arrowhead in Pennsylvania, and then 2 years working there as a JC, as a junior counselor. You freaked the fuck out before you realized that I meant it was day camp, so we got picked up early in the morning and then dropped off around 5.
No, the freaking out was because you told me that the summer camp lasted for 8 weeks.
I was wrong,
like,
it's actually
what
7
the
weeks.
fuck?
So it was the last week of June, all of July, and 2 weeks of August.
Because, not being American, my exposure to summer camps is entirely through films and TV.
That's right.
And I was like, you're stuck in that place with all those dickheads, getting murdered by guys with, big knives and stuff for 8 weeks every year.
No.
I'd go fucking mental.
There were sleepaway, and
This is why there's so many serial killer things set in camps. People just break down.
No. Okay, so sleepaway camps would traditionally be like 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks if you were really lucky. I desperately wanted to go to sleepaway camp. My parents were like, no, that is insanely expensive. You're going to basically daycare. Well, no,
Pretty sure the killings happen in sleepaway camp for much more complicated reasons than that, though. That one was...
like forced transgenderism.
That one was complicated, nuanced, and deeply bad.
Aye. But see, the problem is that, okay, so the summer camp that I went to, I really, thinking back, and it's not just a nostalgia thing, I really can't recall ever being bullied by any of the junior counselors or camp staff. I mean, like, she was making these horrified faces, and I was like, no, but see, there was arts and crafts, there was a nature study hut, there was a pond with fishing and boating and archery. I won the Golden Arrows, I've won many archery ribbons.
Based on films and stuff, I thought it'd be there for like 2 weeks at most, and I cared silly 8 weeks. I was like, what do you do with the rest? Your summer, you're meant to hang out with your friends and annoy adults and take little streams and completely reroute them into a different part of the woods.
That's just your neighborhood. No, my parents were like, no, you're not sitting around the house to just play video games and eat food, not get exercise. You have to go out in the sun. And now that I'm in academia, I still don't get my summers off because it's like, great, the students are gone. Now we can really do research.
I bet Americans are just nuts.
We are. But I had to be like, oh no, it's actually like this. Oh no, actually that's really realistic because, like...
They have a thing called color war, which I'm like, in every single context to do with Americans, that is a terrible thing to call it.
And
Jesus Christ.
We didn't Google it, but it does probably have a really, really racist thing. Like, at Arrowhead, color war was it was the second to last week, because last week was for all the awards, ceremonies and all the events and the carnival and stuff. But, so basically when I was a junior counselor, me and the senior counselor for the bunk that we were in charge of, we went down the list, and it was basically you had an alphabetical list of all your campers, every other one, green, white, green, because those were the colors of Camp Arrowhead. Although the only thing was, if you were a returning camper, whatever team you were on the previous year, you had to be switched, so green 1 year, white, and stuff like that. And it was basically kind of like Hogwarts houses for a week. So basically, everything you did ended up with points being tallied. So suppose your group had, your bunk had soccer every Tuesday at 10 a.m. in Field 3. So usually, your bunk would have just divided into 2 teams and played soccer for an hour. But in this, you were Team Green and Team White, and then whoever won, the senior counselor marked it down and turned it in the end of the day. And then there was a big sing-off at the end. And I have a very distinct memory. The only year that I remember the themes was 1989, because it was Ghostbusters 2 versus Batman. And the green team was Batman that year, which is what I was on.
This sounds hilariously like the Drazi purple and green beating the shit out of themselves in that episode of Babylon 5.
But here's the thing is, there wasn't their bullying context. The thing is, also we had to stop it because this was a very integrated camp in the film, and I was like, you know what, I can count on one hand the children of color who were at Camp Arrowhead, at least the years that I was there. However, it must be said that it was a predominantly Jewish population, so predominantly Jewish kids. So I do not recall, people would be make fun of people who were overweight and stuff like that, or who didn't fit in, but I don't ever recall anyone being bullied on the basis of being an ethnic minority, which I guess is something.
So you're saying the most often ethnic minority that appears most in American camps is actually the serial killer?
Yeah, probably. Serial killers aren't an ethnic minority. They don't have like a...
I've seen enough slasher films, they probably count.
No. But there was a lot of pausing to be like,
Okay,
we did that, but actually...
That's the most
and the
common...
food was really good.
That's the most common minority then, is the slasher villain.
Well, anyway.
That's a better way of putting it.
I spent 5 years at Camp Arrowhead. I worked there for 2 years. I worked in the nature hut one summer, and that was great. I've been bit by so many different animals. And then the next year, I was a JC for a bunk where I was actually not bit by children, thank God. I had to give a lot of piggyback rides, though. A lot of piggyback rides.
So you had a happy time at Camp Native American Appropriation.
Yeah, no, like, literally, it's a sin. Like, I mean, the camp opened in the late 40s, early 50s, because the guy who ran it, Uncle Howie, his father was actually the one that founded the camp. So yeah, it was, I don't know what it's like now, because it's been, God, 30 years probably since I've been there, but it was resplendent with pretending Native American iconography.
I can totally see you fitting in as a counselor again, if you applied.
Well, I'm overqualified. Basically, all the senior counselors had to be licensed teachers in the state of Pennsylvania, but the junior counselors were just teenagers. So technically, because I'm in higher education, I think I'm overqualified.
Well, you could teach them psychology.
No, you want to go swimming and play in the sand pits and do weird arts and crafts.
If they get trapped in like a plane that gets crashed and they have to eat each other, you can work on the best way who can eat each other.
No, also there were a wild lot of wasps, and because everything was built out of like big like faux log. Well, it was wood, but made to look like logs. We had a lot of carpenter bees.
Logs are usually made out of wood.
No, but these were like logs. Like they all obviously were fabric. Like they were, solid wood, but they were like cut in such a way and then painted over to look like they were rough-hewn logs.
Okay, they weren't actual tree bugs. They were from a bigger tree. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they weren't actual logs. They were wood beams made to look like logs, but they were full of holes because the borer bees got into them, and they're just these bugs are terrible. I can't even.
Anyway, we got all the tangents out the way early, so let's talk about the film this time.
Well, it was good. I want to know how fucking much they paid for the music licensing.
There was
Jesus
a lot.
Christ, really? Okay, so both the David Bowie version of Man Who Sold the World and the Kurt Cobain version, Carry On My Wayward Son, Cherry Bomb, which for some reason, I think the first time I heard it, I was like 12, so I think I naturally assumed it came out in the late 80s, early 90s, especially 70s. I don't know.
I figured it was early 80s, so I was like, oh, that's anachronistic too, but then looked it up, and no, it was completely anachronistic, if that's the word.
Yeah, I think I first heard it when I was 11 or 12. So. But see, we start in the 90s, where when we last left our intrepid lesbian and her brother, so she has found out that there was one girl who was possessed by the witch and lived, but only because she clinically died for a while, which is how they knew how to kill the girlfriend in the previous one. So they come to her house and they're like, look, tell us all the crack. And so basically, the whole movie's a flashback, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and so it's all about what happened there. And the villain in this one, the main sort of villain, is basically Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th Part 2. So he's big, silent, has an axe, and even gets a bag on his head eventually.
Yep. Great good lampshade moment.
Yeah.
And there's... Actually, I thought in this one that the socioeconomic undertones were not as pronounced as in the first one.
Yeah, a little bit subtler in this one, but it'll come roaring back.
Oh, I reckon. So basically, she's telling the story, and should I tell the twist now? Spoilers, by the way, but you know.
Okay, I'm gonna wave while you're doing the spoilers, and then when I stop waving, you can come back if you want.
Me?
No, I'll wait.
Oh, them,
so you
okay.
can see. Okay, go.
Oh, yeah, so you think that the girl who's telling the story is the one sister, but actually she's the other sister.
Da da da.
But yeah, so basically there's this one girl, and she's a shady sider. And so this camp is like... camp socioeconomic torture, where like all the rich kids get to be on the one group in color war and like bully everyone else, and all the children of color and lower socioeconomic status children are like shat upon.
Yeah, given what you told me about how these camps usually cost a bunch of money, I think the rich ones pay for a certain amount of poor kids to go there just so they can fuck them over.
Potentially. I mean, like, I was told that, like, oh, you better enjoy camp, we're paying a shit ton. I'm like, I could just stay home. They were like, no. But then when I wanted to go to fancy sleepaway camp, they're like, no, it's too expensive. So I don't think it was exceedingly expensive. Like, it's probably exceedingly expensive now, but it was affordable when I was in the 90s. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I believe.
And if you'd gone to sleepaway camp once, then, it would have been returned to sleepaway camp, and that was just even worse than the first one.
Well, actually, because we had two leagues. We had a soccer league and a volleyball league. And occasionally, other camps would come to us, or we would be bussed out to other camps to play them in friendlies. And we went to a sleepaway camp, and it was class. I really wanted to go there. In a dining hall and bunks and everything. It was awesome.
I promised we'd finish with the tangents.
You talk. You tell the plot, because I always do all the talking.
Okay, so there is the curse, and the guys are killing things again. We got
Axe.
Basically, as is happening in the previous one, it's the off-screen villain putting names on this wall, and that person basically turns into a slasher villain. So this guy's going around and axing everyone, and then some other people end up through a hilarious sort of set of things, and inside a giant like carved out mind of a mandala, end up inside the toilet, and there's a hilarious
latrine. There's a toilet. No, there's a big difference.
So they're out.
Toilet flushes. A latrine is a pit.
Their outhouse goes straight into this big pit where the witch lives, and that is just amazing
probably why she's so
building.
Pissed off.
Yeah.
Or pissed off.
And like the cultists still go down there, but yet there's still the shit going down there. So I bet that smells amazing. And then you've got this hilarious bit where this girl, she's got a broken ankle, and so they're bringing her up through the latrine. And she's sitting on the bucket and it's getting dragged up, and then the villain bursts in and chops the guy's head off, and sending her down in the bucket, and the guy's body down on top of her. So she it was fucking hilarious. She landed and broke her, probably re-broke it. It was bad and lol. And then
everybody in this looked like a younger version of somebody else.
Yeah, the woman telling the story looked like the one who played Lana Lang in Superman 3.
She had a little bit of Jennifer Tilly about her.
Little bit.
Yeah.
She also played Martha Kent in Smallville?
Maybe that's where I know her from. I fucking hate Smallville.
Is it Smallville? I know that she played Martha Kent in a later thing.
Yeah.
They were all, apparently, the actress, she was being auditioning, and then she was like, oh, did you want me to audition because I played Lana Lang in Superman 3? And they were like, you played what? You're getting the role. And she's like, oh,
alright,
okay.
And there was a guy who looked like literally Weird Al, minus like 30, 40 years.
He got himself killed. Although Weird Al looks young for his age.
Yeah. He's like 60-something.
Yeah.
He looks good.
And there's this other guy. He looks like Foggy Nelson from the TV of Daredevil. But then, he clearly, again, about 10 or 15 years younger. So it's everyone's little brothers and sisters in a film.
And I have a theory that this is what happens when you become middle-aged. That, like, all like actors who are like younger than you, like coming up, who just have normal faces, you're like, oh, they look like so and so if they were younger. I think this is just the rest.
Because I knew what they looked like when they were younger.
No, because
I've been around forever.
So I think this is just the rest of our lives now.
Nah, not for me. I see enough. I see too many films for that.
The
villain looks like Robert Pattinson if he was cloned and it went a little bit wrong and he was turned into like 5% extra caveman.
Yeah, he was pretty built. Well, apparently Robert Pattinson's pretty built now too.
Well, this guy, he was also like height-wise and stuff, and his brow was thicker. He just looks like...
And he's not English.
Yeah, but if you take Robert Pattinson, you put him into like a character creator and you put the sliders over like 5% towards caveman, you got this guy.
The actor's like watching, he's like, I think I look alright.
No, it looks fine.
You look fine, dude. I mean, don't
he looks fine. He's just bigger Robert Pattinson.
And there was... It was a good film. Like, the nurse at the camp who goes out of the film quite early on, was like, she's the mother of one of the killers. Like, her daughter was possessed and like killed all of her friends, and then she was in the first film because she's the neighbor that the friends leave the kids she's babysitting with. And they're like, thanks, Mrs. Lane, thanks so much. And she's like, it's okay, I was lonely, I need companionship. I used to be a nurse, it's fine. And for some reason, like, that stuck with me. And then when her daughter was mentioned later on the thing, I'm like, oh, that must be her mom. And then when everyone's like, Nurse Lane, I'm like, Nurse Lane, I know who she is. I've been paying attention to the deep lore.
I didn't pay attention, because I was just like, people have names, I forget them.
But so basically, they found the hand of Seraphir in this cavern area upon Satan's stone. Although, which stone it was never actually, like, shown.
The big one which had, like, Satan written on it.
And it has, like, a big underground, huge, pulsating, beating heart. Just like, if you've ever played The Witcher 3, the spirit that's trapped under the hill that you can either kill or change into a horse.
It looked like the sort...
You know what I mean.
It looked a bit like David Cronenberg's The Brood. Like, not the DVD. It looked like the actual thing in the film. It's not like you get the disc of it, it turns into a pulsing thing. Although
effects.
Although David Cronenberg would fucking love it if your VHS or DVD copy of that did actually pulse and try to kill you.
Like, I couldn't tell if there were practical or CGI or a mix going on, but they were good effects. They weren't...
Admittedly, the lighting here was not the best because it was a dark scene and the sun was still out, and so it might look a bit worse under better lighting conditions. But yeah, it looked good. Yeah, I think it was probably a mix.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's more of the oh no, here's some shady side. Oh no, this is the witch. It's Sarah.
Slim Shady side, no.
All you other Slim Shady sides are just.
And then there's, some... I've noticed there's a lot of striking parallels in this film, there's a lot of things very carefully thought out. There's a bit of Sarah fearful symmetry going on.
Oh, you said that, like, when we were setting up, and it wasn't funny then either. But yeah, no, like...
Write down if it was funny.
The older sister is kind of, like, very, like, perfectionist, very, like, anxious. And, she's like, no, I'll go to college and I'll leave this place behind. And, because my dad ran off and my mom's an alcoholic, but it's okay. And she and her sister don't get along. And her sister's like, cool. She's like, fuck you, power. She swears.
She's like, I'm Ginger, fuck you.
She's read Stephen King. And there's a really great part where there's a guy that, we think there's about 1 or 2 years age difference between them because he's his first year as a counselor, and she's her last year as a camper. So there probably is not statutory, but so they have kind of a thing going on, and he will become the chief of police in the 90s because his father was the chief of police. And they act like, oh, well, you'll just be chief of police because he was. And I'm like, he's not even graduated high school. He can't even, like, go to the academy.
Yeah, but, we already knew he was the chief of police in the previous films. They're just like, we saw the previous film.
But several characters say, oh, you're going to be the next chief of police.
This was filmed after the first one, so we're pretty sure it's going to happen.
Aye. But yeah, so, like, she's all like, oh, like, but you're the weird kid who, like, you're not afraid to talk to the weird kid. He's like, well, I like, like, things. She's like, you like Stephen King. That's weird. He goes, Stephen King's really popular. And I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a bit like being all like, you like weird things like Star Wars.
Oh, it's like really popular. Everyone likes Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like being in the 15...
How can you tell if someone doesn't like Star Wars? Oh, don't worry, they'll let you know.
It's like in like the 5th century AD, being like, oh, you're really weird, you're into that Christianity thing.
I like that this guy was an axe. Oh, do you know why the whole like axe murderer thing was like really, really like first, has this whole cultural thing, but you don't really hear about axe murderers anymore. Do you know why?
I'm pretty sure I know this one. Can I make a guess?
Yes.
I think it is because there were a lot of axe murders happening in a particular period in history, not because people were dragging axes and murdering people, but because people had axes in their houses for cutting wood.
Exactly, yeah. And the axe was a common household tool. It was a tool of convenience. There's a really great true crime book called The Man from the Train, which makes a very, very forensically convincing case. Okay, all right, stop now. Makes a very, very forensically convincing case. Actually, it's two authors. That a spate of axe murderers across the states from, I think it's something like 1899 through like 1912 or 1914 were done by the same perpetrator. But it goes into a lot of like, this was an axe murder that we don't think is by this person because XYZ reasons. But it does cover that. The whole idea of the axe murder was just because the axe was like a kitchen knife or like the gun in the house. It was there, it was a weapon of convenience.
I wonder if the Axeman of New Orleans is one of those.
Actually, no.
No.
No, there's
different.
There's a whole chapter about that.
Okay.
Read. It's called the Man from the Train. Yeah, the Man from the Train. It's really good.
We all know the Axeman of New Orleans was Danny Houston, the actor, and he just really wanted to get with what do you call her? God fucking damn it!
No.
This is American Horror Story season 3 reference.
I've never seen any of it.
What's the name of the woman who stars in the first 4 seasons and she was in Rob Roy with Liam Neeson? She's an Oscar winner. My mind's gone blank. She won an Oscar in the 90s.
Angelia Houston?
No. But anyway, he wanted to be with her character in season 3, and that's what. And then in the end of it, she dies and she goes to hell, and her hell is his heaven because she's trapped with him, being his wife, being his slave.
Okay.
Because but she was a bitch, so it's okay.
But yeah. So this goes into more of like the deep lore of it, like. So apparently...
Literally, it was underground.
It was. So, like, Nurse Lane, like, they thought, oh, she was possessed by the witch, but she actually was, like, figuring out how to, like, find the spirit of Seraphir, because apparently she found something that had claimed that Seraphir cut her hand off and put it on the Satan's stone, and that her curse will remain until they're reunited, and they end up finding... Off camera, one of the characters finds the bony hand on the Satan stone, and so now by the end of it, they so the heroes from the 90s one are like, look, we know where her body is. We found it in the first film, and she was like, well, the hand should still be under the hanging tree, and this is the part that I was like, no, I call bullshit. I was with you for everything else. So the mall. The shopping mall, where the first person got murdered at the beginning of the 90s one. The tree in the middle of the food court is alive. It's like... So apparently, they built the entirety of the mall, like, I don't know how, around, like, an ancient tree with an ancient root system, how you get the electric under there, how you get the plumbing under there, how that's not a violation of health and safety, how the roots growing are not pushing up the floor tiles and getting into the plumbing system.
I'm gonna guess...
They were in the mall digging it up like, oh, here's the...
I'm gonna guess 2 possibilities. One, there's the conspiracy of the Sunnyvales who are doing this in order to make sure keep themselves rich and stuff, arranged all this. Or 2, they built the mall and then they put the tree there, and then someone put the hand in there after it was built. The woman Christine may well have buried it in there afterwards, years later.
Let me just bring this to the mall. No, because remember they showed you they showed you like when the rain was coming after she was taken away in the ambulance. The hand is in the hole under the hanging tree and it fills up with rainwater.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that is dumb.
That I was like, you've got to be... Everyone knows there's no real trees at the mall. It's those plastic ones with the silk leaves made in China.
All that box about the tree reminded me of the chained oak, which is this wonderful thing in the Midlands in England, where you've got this tree, and several hundred years ago, an aristocrat chained all the branches to the main part. We're not really sure why he did this, but
probably mentally ill.
There was a local legend about why it happened, and it's such a good little local legend. I'm shocked it wasn't turned into a Hammer horror movie where they added like tits and devil worshippers. Like in this one, you got the nobles like driving home in his cart, being all like, dun, 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 I'm rich, da, da, da. And then the old lady was in the road, and she was like, give me some poor money, I am poor. And he's like, fuck you, I'm rich. And he just drives past.
Why was she standing in the road?
Because it's the past. And then she's like, I curse you that for every time a branch falls from the old oak tree, one of your family members will die. And he's like, I don't live in curses, I'm rich.
This was 1953.
And then that night, lightning struck the tree, one of the branches fell, and one of the guy's family members died. And so then he chained the branches to the tree. And it's like, that legend would totally be the backbone for a Hammer horror film or an Amicus film or something. But
I mean, if you've ever been to Alton Towers in England, they have a whole ride about it.
Yeah, Hex, the best ride at Alton Towers, is based directly on it. It's fantastic.
As I recall, isn't that part's air conditioned, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's all indoors, yeah.
Because there's like 17 air conditioning units throughout the aisles, so you have to be lucky to find one.
Anyway.
But yeah, I really dug the aesthetic. I desperately want to know how much they had to fucking pay for all that music licensing.
You were wondering where they filmed it, and I was like, it's been filmed in Georgia.
Well, it was obviously filmed on the grounds of a summer camp because there were too many actual buildings to make a set out of.
Yeah.
Like, and when I say buildings, I don't mean like, oh, it's like a cabin. Like, those were established buildings with like obvious foundations and electrical systems and stuff like that. So it looked like it was filmed at a summer camp.
Yeah. It was filmed around Georgia. They very cleverly apparently filmed it 1, 3, and then 2 because 1 and 2 have completely different casts, but 3 has a mixed cast of all of both of them together. So they're like, we'll do all your stuff, then we'll do all mixing ones, and then we'll do the other ones. I was like, I thought that was very clever. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I mean, and I know this is Netflix original, right? They must have poured the money into this.
It's a bit nebulous about what that means. Sometimes they put that on things that, you know, they bought the rights to.
If anyone knows, comment below. But like, this did not have a low budget feel, or if it was mid budget, they used their budget very well.
Yeah.
Because exceeding attention has been paid to the smallest property detail. And you guys know me. You know how much I go in for a good, well-placed prop.
And the music, although there's a lot of licensed music, unlike, say, Suicide Squad, it wasn't distracting. It was just like, hey, tunes.
Yeah, like it was, like in most cases it was diegetic. Like somebody had, like, you know, their radio on, or they pressed play on, like, the tape player.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But anyway, see you soonish for part 3. Not entirely sure when we're going to do that. Maybe as early as next week, if not, like a week after that.
I'm tired, so probably a week after that. Also, we'll put a link in the description for
the bookshop.
darkrosebooks.com.
It is a fantastic collection of books.
Which can be yours if you buy them.
Yes.